Hi, my name is Clarissa Vella. Today we are going to be covering a topic over probability. I have chosen this topic over the last ones that we have done for the assignment. Probability is technically, the way I can explain it, is more like an educated guess, like somewhat like of a hypothesis. That's the way I like to think of it, just because it's like you don't know exactly what your outcomes are always going to be, and you always get to experiment with it, which is the fun part. This is what I'm doing for probability. I drew a somewhat spinner in here because sometimes spinners can be used for probability, but I also divided the sheet in half to show like you have a half and half chance of anything and there's your spinner going. I just thought it'd be a little creative for us to do. For the activity today, we're going to be doing a coin toss activity. I thought it would be an easier activity for students to interact with, just because we get to use 2 coins and it's usually somewhat simpler for the students to see what you can list as possible outcomes, and then you can experiment with it to see exactly what your outcomes came out to be. So today I have listed what we are going to be doing for a coin toss activity. We're going to do covering with lists, tables, and tree diagrams, and we are also going to conduct our own coin toss to list what happens, and we're also going to show the examples of what happened in all 3 different ways. Since we do cover for probability, it was told that it's easier to show, like visualize, write them out for the students sometimes. So I went ahead and listed out for a list, a table, and a tree diagram of what our possibilities will be with the coins. The only possible outcomes you really have, you'll have 4 different outcomes that you can get, but it's going to be between heads and tails. And so we're going to show you these for your possible outcomes in 3 different ways. Here's one for the list, and as you can see, I have listed each for heads, tails, heads, tails, and tails, tails. So those are your 4 possible outcomes either way. Just down here again under it, we put for the table part. The table, again, it's just showing basically heads, tails, and it's the same exact outcomes, it's just a different diagram wise. And then here at the bottom we did a tree diagram. I'm sorry for that little mess right there, but again, it's the same exact thing. We're listing out all 4 possible outcomes for how everything can happen. Also, just one thing to be careful of is when we are going over this with the students is just the misconceptions we can have, because some students don't always realize like you can always end up with maybe more than just one possibility than what you think. You can get whatever possibility. It's crazy. So students don't need to freak out with that, because I mean, you can always experiment to see the differences. Here we're gonna try with the coins here, and I'm gonna list them out, but I just want to remind you guys that we do only have 4 technically possibilities we can have between heads, tails, heads, and tails. So we're gonna go ahead and flip the coins for about 4 times to see what our possibilities came out to be. So there's our first coin toss. We both ended up with, sorry if you can't see that, but they're both heads. So our first possible outcome came out to be heads, which is already one possibility that we have listed. Go again. There's one. Okay, we ended up with tails that time. So again, we have already made 2 possibilities become an outcome for us. 2 more, guys. Heads, tails. That makes another one we have. Sorry if you couldn't see that one. Heads and tails. So that's another one that we have already crossed off the list. The only one that we haven't got is just technically, I mean, tails, heads, but I kind of have. Sorry. One more. Tails, heads. So we have already crossed out every possibility that we did. So again, guys, for the heads coin toss, we ended up with 4 different possibilities. That's what we had our possible chances of being. All 4 outcomes ended up being those possibilities. And that is how we do probability. Thank you.